Okay, so we're coming to the end of Chapter 1, and in Section 3, we're going to be looking at economic growth. Now, this happens to be one of your book's vocabulary words, so here we have the definition of economic growth. I'm going to highlight it so it's a little easier to see. Underline. So, that's the definition. Increase in a nation's total output of goods and services over time. Okay, as definitions go, not too bad. But how would we write this down on our notes so that it's easy to remember? How would we paraphrase it? Oops, that seems to be on a timer. Or just look at the most important aspects of it. And I like equations when I do my notes. Doesn't mean that you have to do it that way, but as an example, this is what I would have put. Economic growth equals the total output of goods and services, we have an arrow there, increasing over time. Now, as it turns out, we have a couple of reasons for this. Okay, the first one is it looks like we're all greedy and selfish, okay? Everybody wants more goods and services in the future than they already have. So let's think about that for a moment. Ask yourself this. The needs that you had when you were 2, are they the same as the needs that you have now? What are some of the things that you had or that you needed when you were 2 that you simply no longer have a need for? And then ask yourself that question with regards to what your wants are. Okay, now we're going to leap ahead into the future. Imagine that you are 25 or 30 and try to imagine some of the things that you will need then and some of the things that you are going to want then. Are they the same things that you need and want right now? Okay, so the point is, kind of simple. As we get older and move through the stages of our life, our needs and wants are going to change, and they're most likely going to increase, especially if we have a family. Now, the second reason that drives economic growth is a constantly growing population. So, the more people that are on the planet, the more needs and wants they're going to have. So, consider this. So, when I was in junior high, the population of the United States was around 245 million people. Does anybody know what the current population of the United States is? So, all of the additional people that are in the country today have needs and wants. And if they have needs and wants, those needs and wants are going to have to be satisfied. And how do we satisfy needs and wants? With goods and services that come from business. Now here's something else to consider. Did all that population increase, did it all come from Americans just having more babies? Or did it come from another source? So this is a controversial issue as far as whether or not immigration is good for the country. But when new immigrants come to the United States, they bring their needs and their wants with them. And those needs and wants have to be satisfied as well, and they're satisfied with goods and services, and businesses produce goods and services. So over time, an increase in population, whether it's from natural means or from immigration, is going to drive economic growth. Also, new immigrants eventually, most of them, end up starting their own businesses, small businesses, which also provide jobs, which is good for the economy. Okay, so now we get into the area of risks and sacrifices. We talked a little bit about opportunity cost. Okay, and if you need a refresher, all that means is that if we go back to our guns and butter graph, if we decide to make most of our output 90% guns, it means we're only going to be able to produce 10% butter. Okay, so the opportunity cost of producing 90% guns is we are not making a larger amount of butter. Now, what does that have to do with risk? Well, the risk comes in if you decide to make 90% of your output guns, but there's not a demand for that many guns, you're not going to be able to sell them. And you'll take a loss, not just in sales, but in purchasing the raw materials you used to produce those guns to begin with. And vice versa with butter. Okay, so the risk is this: making the right product that people are going to want and need, or providing the right service that people are going to want or need. Would you go into business in Alaska selling snow cones? Do you think that would be a product that would make a lot of money up there? Or would hot chocolate make more money in Alaska, especially in the wintertime? So the way that your book phrases this particular problem is, are businesses making the right investments today to meet future consumer demands? So here's another way to look at this, or another example. Do you think that the auto industries in Detroit are investing in continuing to build strictly internal combustion cars that drive on gasoline? Or do you think that they are investing in making more and more cars that run off of electricity? Now, we can't talk about economic growth without talking about productivity. And your book has productivity as one of your vocabulary terms as well. Let's have a look and see what it says. Okay, so I'll go ahead and highlight it. Productivity. Okay, measure of the amount of output produced in a specific time period with a given amount of resources. Normally refers to labor, but can apply to all the factors of production. So, again, as a suggestion, this is how I would write something like that down in your notes. Productivity equals amount of goods and services with a given amount of resources in a specific amount of time. So think of it this way. If you have a lemonade stand and you are producing 5 lemonade cups in an hour, if you're able to produce 10 lemonade cups with the same number of lemons in an hour, your productivity is higher. Okay, next term on our list, human capital. This should ring a bell. Many of you, all of you, should be thinking about the factors of production and labor. And I don't mean childbirth. Okay, so human capital, the sum of people's skills, abilities, health, and motivation. Pretty simple definition. It's what your workforce, your employees, are willing and able to do. And as we saw earlier in section 2, we count that as one of the 4 factors of production, along with land, capital, labor, and entrepreneurs. Okay, so let's see how you might put this in your notes. Skills, knowledge, abilities, health, and motivation. That's all human capital. Now, if a company invests in human capital, meaning, let's say that you're a car company and you're getting a new kind of robot on the assembly line which will require training for your employees to operate it. If you pay for that training and you give them that training, you're investing in your workforce. Maybe a company will provide half tuition so that you can go and get a master's degree or get your bachelor's degree. Okay, that's investing in human capital. And when you invest in human capital, ladies and gentlemen, what goes up? What is this entire section about? Your productivity.